going to talk about the RB1s. Yeah, there's a lot of names you're going to know. Are they in the same order? Do we think they're in the same order? Is consistency going to make a difference in that order? You're going to find out next. Rock on, everyone out there. Again, we're going to look at the RB1s this week. We have RB1As. We'll talk about that, but then we have the RB1Bs. But without Ron, it gives us a little more time. Not that we don't love Ron, but it gives us a little more time to kind of go back and forth since there's only two of us. So, James, we start with the RB1As. Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry. The first three for sure are interchangeable. They're going in the probably top half of the first round in every draft I've been in. I don't think I've ever seen any of those three guys going past number 6, unless it's like a 2 QB kind of crazy stuff. Typical redraft, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, blah, blah, blah. Those three are there. Henry's a little bit later in round 1, even early round 2. But I have Bijan 1, I have Barkley 2, I have Gibbs 3. Do you differ in that order, or you're kind of like, well, whoever falls to me, I would take any of the 3?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat as you are with that. Those 3 guys are all interchangeable. Like I said, they I mean, every box you want to check, right? Receptions, good offenses, totally dominate the carries in their offense. I mean, anybody you pick in that group, the only thing that's happening, like just like you, the only thing I'm seeing in drafts that's changing is, where Jamar Chase falls somewhere in between there. If he doesn't go first, it's somewhere else, and it's those 4 guys like consistently everywhere I look. Yeah. So I can't fault anybody for taking any of those guys.
So there's a lot of talk, and you've seen it, I've seen it. Barkley's going to fail because of X number of touches. What are your thoughts? And then I'll share mine.
We've seen Barkley get banged up. We saw it happen in New York. We saw some things like that. He had a crazy amount of touches. But at the same time, he had the least amount of receptions that he's had in years. He was in an offensive line where he wasn't getting touched he almost doubled his yards before getting touched that he had in New York, in Philadelphia. Unless the wheels somehow fall off, and even the injuries he got in New York, the one freak accident where he leapfrogged a guy and landed and twisted his ankle, it's not soft tissue stuff. It's not things like that. They're going to run him, and they're going to keep running him, and I think he's going to have a lot of success there. And, you hear some people talk about the Madden curse with him. He's on the cover of Madden, right? So he's got all these touches.
So he's got both curses. He's over the curses.
He's got 2 curses, but you know what? If anybody's going to break it, it's probably going to be Saquon Barkley because they brought him in and he just turned into a monster. And I'm not going to fade him, and other people can fade him at their own risk. But like you said, if he falls in a draft and I'm say 5th, 6th, I'm ecstatic that he fell there. Yeah.
I'm the same boat. I always call them aliens, whether it's Adrian Peterson after he has a horrible ACL injury and then rushes for 2,000 yards. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. These guys are aliens. They're not human. So, they work out just as hard whether if they had 50 touches or 500 touches. And they're going to prepare themselves to go out and do it again and again and again. Will they finally fall apart? I guess so, but again, these are different breeds. Like, this is not, this is not your dad's running backs.
It's the crazy part. Some of these guys, I feel like the more touches you give them, the better they get.
That's Derrick Henry for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and it's wild. Like you said, that couldn't have described them better. That's exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll kind of take a quick step forward at the number 5 spot that I have at number 5, which is the first of the RB1s, or RB1Bs, is Christian McCaffrey. Right now their ADP is 13 and 15. And I said, I haven't had that pick, but if I ever get pick 12 and Henry and McCaffrey are sitting there, I'll bet my house that I'll be picking both of them back to back, because why would you not?
The idea that you can start with those guys as RB1 and RB2 on your team, injuries, all kinds of stuff can happen. But You're talking about you might be 20 points ahead of everybody else already at your running back position before they even get going. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we'll move on to the 1Bs. First one up is McCaffrey. ADP running back 7. I've got him at 5. Like I said, ADP is 15. I'm not scared. I took him in the Scott Fishbowl in Chicago. I was picked 7. Again, I just had no problem with that scenario. He could get hurt. Anybody can get hurt. At least last year, like there was these hints of tweaks and things, and we were kind of like, oh, okay, well, he says he'll be fine. This year, all I'm hearing from camp is he's back. This is the Christian McCaffrey know and love. He's still running just as fast, making just as good cuts, just dominating, the training camp, which we'd expect, right? He is Christian McCaffrey. So I'm fine with it. I am taking him before Achin and Giante and those kind of guys. Are you good with McCaffrey at 5, or do you have somebody that you kind of feel a little bit higher on heading into this season?
I'm with you a lot on that too. In Scott Fishbowl, I was picking out of the 3 spot. Barkley fell to me at 3. I got Henry though in the second round, but I was hoping CMC was going to fall back to me. But I started Barkley, Henry. I'm not going to play. CMC. The crazy part about him is, like I said, we're only 4 years removed from 2021 or 2020, somewhere in that vicinity, when he set the second highest fantasy score ever behind LaDainian Tomlinson, and he was only a few points behind him.
Mm-hmm.
What's scary about that, the 49ers may have less weapons than they have in years before. And if they do, and they lean on a healthy CMC, I mean, we could see him be a legit, I hate to say that, league winner again, but you're talking about a guy that might fall to the back end of the first round, even the second round. I'm seeing in some places ADP-wise. He should be a top 5, top 6 pick, but so many people worried about losing that year, and I get that. He's lost some years, but when he touches the ball, he's another one of those alien-type monsters that can get you 70, 80 recs in a PPR league, which is insane for a floor, and he might have run for 130 and 2 touchdowns in the game too. Yeah. And like there's just not a whole lot of guys that are going to be capable
He's
of
running touchdown passes.
Yeah. I mean,
I remember the game he did one of each. I was like, what is happening? This guy's not real.
This year, like I was saying, without all that, the weapons, and with Debo gone, with now Jennings talking about possibly holding out, Shanahan, Kyle might have him doing everything. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him throw multiple touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised to see him catch, and be close to 20 total touchdowns. But that helped. And I'm not in the business of predicting injuries. I'm never going to let it scare me away. If he looks healthy and they say he's healthy coming into camp, he's a smash as soon as I see him on my screen in the draft. Yeah.
Gotcha. No, couldn't agree more. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Next up, Achin. 6th on our rankings, 6th ADP, 14th. So he actually goes in between Henry and McCaffrey in the actual overall order. Love the talent. The team can be shaky around him, can also be unbelievable around him. Last year, it was a disaster. It was beyond train wreck. And yet, Achin still plowed through 5th in total points. His consistency not as good, only 71%, which ranked him 16th, which is why I have him 6th. I didn't think I needed to move him down. I'm hoping that Tyreek's healthy, Waddle's healthy, Tua stays healthy. That machine may not be running at top speed like it did a couple years ago, but certainly can be back at 80% of what it was, which is good enough. I haven't drafted Achin yet. It seems like I'm either early, or early mid, and then I haven't been 8, 9, 10. It's either, or 11, 12. I haven't been in that back half. So I haven't had that opportunity yet. I'm sure that it will come. And if, the big 5 are gone, I'm going to look at that. And the tough part is at that spot, am I picking Achin, or am I going to take a Drake London, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, those kind of people? That's where it becomes tough. It's not that he's not the probably next best running back from a total package standpoint. It's a question of whether or not I like the receivers better at that spot than him. What are your thoughts on Achane and the Dolphins offense as a whole this year?
We've seen it home. We've watched Mike McDaniel push out offense there. He's all about speed. They keep bringing in more speed, and we've seen what happens when it works. It was a couple of years ago, the Mostert and Achane game together, where I think they scored like 110 points combined, 57 one of them, 53 from another. My wife had them in Scott Fishbowl playing them together that week. She's never let me live that down. I've heard about it for the rest, for ever since, as she should. Yeah. But I'm with you on that. You got other guys. We talked about McCaffrey being hurt. We talked about Barkley possibly having these curse things, and everybody's kind of making up these things.
All right.
The realistic thing about the Dolphins and the Achane is when you look at him, he's reliant so much on Tua's help, on he'll having a rebound year and doing those things. He was good last year, but he's not going to get you to that top tier unless the whole offense is humming, And the other guys, it feels like they can just kind of, in a given week, make up for that. With him, his pass catching ability is fantastic. He had 87 targets, was second in running backs last year. He ran. I heard somebody say something the other day. I think it was Andrew Cooper was talking about some stuff, Coop, and he said that Achane ran the most routes for a running back since David Johnson did back in the days with Arizona last season. Yeah. But you got to figure a lot of that came from Hill being banged up. Waddle gets banged up. They even used Jonnu Smith in that offense, which I don't think McDaniel really intended to do, with speed.
He's last man standing.
You're the last one here. Yeah, the lights are on. Yeah, and that's what happened in Miami. So with him, I am so scared of that offense imploding around him that if I'm in that range where I feel like I can get him, and I'm the same as you, I haven't really been anywhere where I've been able to get him yet. Like I've been either right there in front of where he goes, where I want one of those other five guys, or on the backside where he went right before me, And at this point, though, like I said, that might be a good thing unless they can bounce back as a whole. And I'm not sure I'm 100% in on that.
Yeah, I think the biggest factor is, as you mentioned, is Tua. I mean, the team just collapsed. I don't even remember who their backup was. Was it Skylar Thompson or something like that?
They started Skylar Thompson and then brought Tyler Huntley in from Baltimore.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah. And so, I mean, we could all hope and pray that Tua makes it through another season. But, man, I mean, he's one sneeze away from being done. I mean,
from completely done. Yeah, you're not talking about the season or a couple games. He might be done for his career. And they brought in Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is the backup, but
all right, yeah.
He might support one or two fantasy options, but I'm not sure he's going to be enough to help a running back clear the top tier. Yeah,
I gotcha. All right, next on the list, Ashton Jeanty, which is the superstar rookie coming out of Boise State. I have him 7th. ADP last time I updated it, which probably needs to update a little bit more, but it's still been pretty high. Was it 4? Pick number 8. My disdain for rookies. Not a fan, but they've happened. So certainly Saquon Barkley when he came out, and some of these top guys when they've come out have earned their over 60% clutch rate. And Jeanty certainly has that possibility. He's playing for a bad team with an average quarterback with not a lot of weapons outside of Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers. So, they could feed him the ball 30 times a game, and maybe he will get that just on volume only, which is certainly possible. The question is am I going to pick him that early? Again, this comes down to I'm not going to pick him at 4. That's just ridiculous. But if he falls to 8, 9, 10, 11, and let's say 8 is gone, am I going to pick him, or am I going to pick Kyron Williams, or am I going to pick, again, Nico Collins, A.J. Brown, Malik Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, Drake London? I just go, I'm not going to take that chance. I'm going to draft one of those top receivers at that point. I just can't. I mean, I've been, I've said this every year. When you get something like that in the top, it's hard for them to put up those kind of numbers. It's possible. We've seen some in the past, but you know, I always say I have to ask myself this question at the end of the year. If my team sucked, and somebody says, "Well, who'd you pick in the first round?" and I say, "Oh, I took Ashton Giente over Drake London," and they're going to go, "You're an idiot." I can sleep at night if I say, "Well, yeah, I took Garrett Wilson, and I expected he's had good seasons, and he let me down, or AJ Brown let me down, or whatever." But if I tell somebody, especially with my consistency model, "You took Ashton Giente," like, yeah, no, that was really dumb. But God bless those who want to. And I'm not going to argue that this kid, he's in the perfect situation to be successful. But he also played at Boise State, not Ohio State, not Oklahoma, not Texas, not, so that's the thing that scares me the most. I'm not a college guy, so I didn't watch much of him. I certainly saw a lot of highlights every week, him busting off big runs on it. But again, like, against, the same areas of the blind and whatever other, lesser schools that they're playing against. What's your thoughts on Gente? Do you follow college? Did you watch him play? I mean, is he that special that we should be that high on him that we're putting, the ADP world is putting him ahead of, McCaffrey and Henry and Achan and those kind of guys? I mean, it's obviously happening because ADPs were out there, but boy, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think with Jainty, there's a lot of FOMO of, like you said, some people are out on him because it's rookies and, they're doing things. But that FOMO of he's going to be a generational talent, come into the league, dominate, and do things. That's great and all. And you know what? If the Raiders went out, they got Geno Smith. I'm not gonna call Geno Smith a bad quarterback. Not gonna say that Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is obviously a Hall of Fame type coach. They went and brought him in, did that. He wants to run the ball, wants to do something. Seems perfect. But the one thing that sticks with me is something you said, and you said if he has to get their own volume, that he might do that if it's volume. I think the Raiders as an organization are going to look at that and think, if we got to get him there on volume, then we built this thing wrong and we're killing our first round running back.
Right.
And a lost season where they're not expected to beat the Chiefs, not expected to beat the Chargers or the Broncos or something. They're
going to be last. There's no question.
They're going to be last in the division.
They're playing for next year to get Arch Manning.
you give Jainty 350 touches or something like that and do something crazy just on volume. They don't care about our fantasy team. They care about their rookie running back when they can surround him around talent. That's my biggest knock on Jainty. I think I watched him in college, and you're right. He dominated against some competition that he should have dominated against. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah, he had some good games against some decent competition. That's good too. He's definitely worth that first round pick, I think, for them. But like I said, towards the end of the year, when they've got 6 wins and they're looking around and doing stuff, they're not going to march Jainty out there for 30 carries and target him 10 times. I just can't see them doing that. For that reason, I don't see him finishing at top tier. When they start pulling the reins back and they're letting other guys get carries, Sincere McCormick there, they brought in Raheem Mostert is another back there that's a veteran. Guess what? If Jainty has problems in pass pro or doing other things, he might come off the field with Mostert. I mean. And especially if the season is broken, they're not going to risk him that way. And I just can't put him, ahead of the top 5 guys. I can't put him ahead of Achan. I can't put him ahead of, the other 6 or 7 guys in that.
Yeah,
but
right.
Like you said, in every draft I keep seeing, he keeps moving up more and more and more. And I think it's people who, as they're coming into redraft season, they're looking at him and saying, it's the top rookie. He was a first round pick. If I missed out those top 4 or 5 guys, I'm getting him, And I think it's just the FOMO of it. That's it.
Yeah, like you said, I call the shiny new toy syndrome.
Yep.
Look, it's bright, it's shiny. I should pick him because I don't want Derrick Henry. He's old.
It's why every 5th round rookie running back is going to take the starter's job this year when they come in too. People fall in love with that and think it's going to happen, and
you never know.
Every now and again.
Every now and then, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's certainly been some, not a lot. All right, let's move down to number 8. I got Kyron Williams there last year, 94% consistency, missed a game They're seventh in total points. Basically, he was everything you wanted him to be. And you didn't have to put a lot of draft capital into him. Now this year, ADP RB11, pick 26, so you can get him early third round. I'll let you go first on that. What are your thoughts on Kyren Williams? Because I've heard a lot of polarizing things on SiriusXM and podcasts and stuff, and it's like, yeah, what's your thoughts?
Thoughts on that are he's almost in that same boat of what you said JT possibly could be with the volume thing. His volume gets him there, and McVay loves feeding him, and the organization loves him. But those warts every year get bigger and bigger, it feels like. The efficiency drops, his yards per carry drops. I believe he was tied for the league lead in fumbles last year amongst running backs too. And, he's been less involved in the passing game and doing that. The GM for the Rams, I saw where he said we need more explosive, we need to do more things, and that's why we're going to target explosive players. They go out and draft Jarquez Hunter, I think that was his name. Yeah. Hugely explosive running back, one of the more explosive running backs actually in the draft. And he, 30-plus yard plays, that was his specialty, breaking those plays. If he eats in a little bit, and then last year's pick, Blake Corum, gets some touches, the wheels fall off extremely fast for Kyren Williams if he's not getting those 27, 30 touches a game, And he's getting volume, not only the volume, but he also gets the goal line. So,
well, I was going to say, the one thing they won't take away from him is the goal line carries, which is obviously where he got a lot of fantasy points last year. Totally understand that. I like the ADP. So, my thought is, let's say at first pick, let's say I get one of the first couple picks, and I'm going to take Bijan Barkley or Gibbs. Okay, coming back and get Kyren Williams at the turn, and then also get, what should be a pretty solid receiver. I don't know who will fall that far. It just depends on your league. But you're going to get a decent guy there. I mean, obviously London and those guys will be gone, but you might be able to get a Devontae Adams or a Mike Evans, DJ Moore, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, your guys falling like your Moores. I mean, you even got Rashi Rice falling around, depending on how people feel about him legally. You might get the case.
Right.
But like you said, if you get that top-notch, one of those 4 or 5 top backs, team them with Williams, and then you still get a high-end wide receiver one, again, you're off to the races against everybody else,
Yeah. I would love to have Kyren Williams as my RB2. I don't know if I want him as my RB1 unless I go like Jamar Chase, then, another top receiver like I just mentioned, some of those, then take Kyren as my number 1 running back. Not too shabby there, but it just depends who's sitting around there because we're going to get some other guys that I might take over him. Like I said, I have Kyren ranked higher because I feel like he's in a better offense and better team around him than some of the guys are a little bit below him, but they're still solid players. So let's go to number 9. That's Bucky Irving, who basically came from out of nowhere last year, replaced Rachaad White. Second half of the season was just off the charts. I think he had one missed clutch game like from week 9 on. Plowed through the playoffs. Anybody who had him who went into the playoffs pretty much was going to win a title. 71% consistency, which doesn't look great. 17th, 13th in total points, but that's mostly because he really didn't become the full-time. Well, they shared quite a bit, but Bucky Irving, when he had his opportunities, just made the most of them, and that's why it just slowly started kind of like, here's Rachaad White, here's Bucky, and it just kind of went like this through the season. So by the end of the year, those last 4 or 5 games, they know him all the time. I like the kid. Obviously, it's a great offense. Still not sure what they're going to do with Rachaad White. I've heard rumors they might trade him to like the Cowboys, which I think would be a great idea. But I like him. I got him 9th. Again, he's ahead of a couple guys who maybe just because of the team they're on, I'm not a biggest fan. With Bucky Irving having so many weapons that you can't focus on him. I feel like he's a solid. Again, I'd rather have him an RB2. He's another one. He's kind of like Kyren Williams. Like I'd rather have him paired with Gibbs or Bijan or something, but I'm good with him as a solid, consistent player. His ADP is number 8. ADP is actually 8 and 19th, so it's a mid to late second round. Are you in on Bucky? Are you probably going to pass on him and take a receiver when you're close to that scenario? What are your thoughts there, James, on Bucky Irving?
I like Bucky a lot, and he falls in that line of what I was just saying. He's that fourth round running back that came in and took the incumbent's job. Rashad White has kind of inconsistent in running the ball at probably the best. I'm probably being nice saying that. But what he does is good for pass catching and do that. I think he's still going to be a part of that offense. So for Bucky, when I look at this, the wide receivers that are kind of going around his spot, I'm probably more interested in. I may even be more interested in a running back or two after him here. My fear with him is the Bucs are going to throw the ball. They always throw the ball. They do that. Offense does that. Mayfield, since he's been there, Tom Brady before him, they're throwing 500 to 600 times a year. Why not? Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they went out and drafted Egbuka, you know what I mean, this year. Jalen McMillan.
Yeah, right.
Cade Otton is a serviceable tight end. Yeah. I mean, it feels like they've got receiving options everywhere, and it's worked for them, But,
and Bucky catches passes out of the backfield. So
I was going to say he's electric out of the backfield too.
Yeah, right. So they got so many options. So
With Irving though, you can see some of those games where Mayfield gets to run stuff, where the defense kind of gives up points, and then you're probably going to lose some of that. Like I think you were saying, his touching on his consistency, the 71%. It's probably a little higher than that because obviously he didn't get the job as early on, so we're kind of getting some of that in there. But I also feel like he's the kind of player that, like I said, as he'll get touches and do things, I think they're still going to mix White in. And like I said, if they get into shootouts, you're hoping he breaks a big play in the pass game or does something like that. You're probably going to end up with more duds than you will with some of the other stud running backs ahead of him and maybe a couple even behind him.
Gotcha. No, I got you on that. All right, so let's talk about the last three kind of as a package because I feel like they're all very close. So number 10, Josh Jacobs. Number 11, Jonathan Taylor. Number 12, James Cook. We could probably even take Cook out at this point because Cook is wanting more money. Cook is kind of holding out, kind of not. It's Buffalo seems to be like, okay, hold out if you want. We got Ray Davis. So I'm this close to start moving him around, and I might move Chase Brown into 12 and Cook down to 13. But so let's leave Cook. Let's just talk Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor. Kind of, I won't say polar opposites, but you've got older player, younger player. Both did fine last year. Jacobs probably plays for a better overall team in Green Bay than Taylor in Indy. But Taylor is certainly the more talented back, just on a bad team. And without a solid quarterback, whether it's Richardson or Danny Dimes here, that's why he's that far down. I mean, Jonathan Taylor just a few years ago was top 4. I think he has a talent, but he can't seem to stay healthy. I mean, there's just so like if you're sitting there and you've got those two potential picks, Taylor or Jacobs, are you looking at one or the other, or are you passing and going, I'm going to look either somewhere else, look at a receiver, look at a top tight end, because they're going in round, second, third rounds. Actually, no, let's take that back. 21, 22. So they're very close. ADP 9, 10, and 21, 22. So you coming down the stretch there, pick 20 happens. Those two are sitting there. Obviously, there's going to be other receivers and other things happening. Do you like either one of them as your RB1 or as your RB2 if they're late second round, because they're going to be matching up that Gibbs, Barkley or whatever with them? Or are you kind of going, I'm going to take a couple receivers here?
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that when I was talking about Bucky Irving. These are kind of the two guys, right here. Both of them have potential RB1. I think Jonathan Taylor, like you said, because of that, if Daniel Jones can even be serviceable there and do stuff, then that offense will run, and Jonathan Taylor will be pretty good. They got some pass catchers there, and I think they still want to run. They want to focus on him and do that. the health there does scare me a little bit, and that's where you kind of start leaning towards Jacobs, and you're like, this man just every single year will play almost every single game and get 30 touches and doesn't seem to care.
Well,
But,
and 94% consistency, sixth in total points, and yet his 80. I mean, like I said, people were still drafting him. I thought he would fall into the he's getting old category, and they would kind of push him down. Now, the fantasy world has done that to Aaron Jones, which is interesting that they're pushing Aaron Jones down, but they're leaving Jacobs there. And I thought they were the same age, but
yeah, you look at him and you start thinking to yourself, because Jacobs feels like he's been around forever, taking a constant beat every single year, and just keeps coming back and doing stuff. Yeah. And he kind of, when I think about Jacobs, he reminds me of an older running back, the Forte, Matt Forte from the Bears.
Oh, yeah, Matt Forte for the Bears, yeah.
Like, a lot of people always talked about who the RB1 was every single year, and Forte was always in that weird range where he'd kind of drop down and do stuff. But every year, he just kept coming back and kept putting up numbers. And it's like, Josh Jacobs is kind of that guy. But my fear on Jacobs, last year they didn't really have anybody. They drafted Marshawn Lloyd. I think they planned on using some. A.J. Dillon gets hurt. Lloyd gets hurt. They ended up using Emmanuel Wilson was the second running back. Right. So it was kind of the Josh Jacobs. It had to be the Josh Jacobs show. Right. Fortunately for them, they went out and got a starter back, and he did that. Taylor's kind of almost the polar opposite of that, you know. Yeah. They may have another guy. They may have a pass catcher in years past. Two different people will kind of spell him, and he'll still get hurt. But if he doesn't get hurt, he's good for 4 or 5 games where you're like, he might be the RB1 if he could ever put that together. Yeah. You know, so at the end of the day, I'd probably take both these guys over Bucky Irving myself. Mm-hmm. But when you start looking at this again, especially if I got one of those stud running backs, you know, I'm kind of starting to think about there's some receivers out here who put up 100 recs in this vicinity that could, you know, push for the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 right there in that spot. I'm probably thinking about them, probably leaning them more just out of the fear of Jacobs getting more competition, Taylor not staying healthy, and a bad offense.
I think the other thing, too, and we'll obviously get to this next week, so there's a nice segue for next week's show. There's a lot of RB2s that we wait a couple rounds might provide just as good, if not better value than picking one of those guys at the end of round 2, early round 3, and you can get those people in rounds 3, 4, and 5, or 4 and 5 more than. So we'll talk about the running back 2s next week, and why, like you said, I would be more of I'm going to pick a couple receivers now, and then I'm going to go get one of these RB2, especially the RB2A group, which is actually a very big group, and we'll talk about that next week. So, James, before we close out our RB1 tier here, tell everybody where they can find you, and then we'll take it out from there.
All right, thanks. Yeah, if you're on X, I'm at JKeezy, and Bob said, putting out articles on Big Guy Fantasy Sports and doing that. If you want to, shoot me a follow, and let's talk some football, and keep looking out for the articles, and we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, no, thanks everybody who's been reading. Like I said, James, Ron, Kobe, all of us been putting out, they've been putting out a lot of articles. I've been working on the Expo a little more than I need to be, but well, I'll get back there. I promise you all out there. I'll get back to the consistency profiles real soon. But yeah, so James, thanks again for joining us. Ron, out there watching, I know you are. Have a safe trip home this week, and we'll see you next week where we do the RB2s and why there was maybe a lot more value there than you think. Might be worth waiting to get those guys in the 4th, 5th round. So for James Knight, I'm Bob Long. Take care. God bless. We'll see you soon.